But I just like that as a failure as an assumption rather than something to avoid. Like Elon was able to get the rockets up because he failed 5 times faster than people were able to do one. So he got 5 failed rockets out before he got a 6th. And everybody was looking at the 5 failures, but he's like, well, look at how much further we got. So one of the difficulties with skill is that masters have more milestones along the way. And so they're able to mark progress with more nuance. A beginner only sees kind of a binary outcome between it worked or it didn't work. But for me, if I'm going to go into a new advertising channel, for example, if I want to say, I want to start doing cold outbound. When we started doing cold outbound for Gym Launch, my executive team, so, not like experienced people, about 3 or 4 months in, basically did like an intervention with me. And they said, you're putting all of your time and attention to this. We think this is a shiny object, using my words against me, right? This is a woman in the red dress. And we think you should stop and let's double down on what works, which for us at the time was paid ads and some content. And the thing is that they were too far away to know the progress we were making. And so they just saw that we basically hadn't made any sales. We made 1 sale in like 3 months. But I knew that the first problem we had is we didn't know where to get the data from. Where do we get these lists from? So then we finally got the list and we're like, okay, but no one's picking up. We have to enrich the data. Okay, then we enrich the data. Then no one was still picking up. We have to do local call wrapping on our phone so that increases the pickup frequency. So then people started picking up, but then no one wanted to book a call because our script was off. So we fixed the hook, and then people would listen to us, but they didn't like the offers. And we fixed the offer. Then people came to the second call, but then they weren't showing up to the second call. And then we were like, okay, we have to create a follow-up sequence. Now, at this point, they're like, hey, you need to stop. It was just, we have 100 steps that we have to take and we're 33% of the way there. But if you're a beginner, you don't know you're 33% of the way there. And so I think one of the difficult things as a beginner is that there is a leap of faith. Like when you do your first week at the gym, you're not going to get results. But it doesn't mean that working out's wrong. It just means you're measuring on the wrong time horizon. And I think one of the things that has thrown a ton of beginners off is the understanding of volatility and volume. So basically, when you have a new business or a new endeavor, what appears inconsistent or volatile is typically a function of doing too little volume. And so it's like, yeah, 1 sale comes in every, a couple weeks, I'm still, but if we look at the activities that generate that sale, it's like you might have done 100 reach outs over 30 days and then one of them becomes a sale. So it appears volatile, but really it's just, you got 1% and you're doing far too little. And so if we did 100 a day, then all of a sudden we might make 1 sale a day. And all of a sudden it seemed very consistent. And so the volatility is only a function of insufficient volume. And so I think that misconception is why many people who start out fail quickly or choose not to start, because they are measuring their feedback loop on too short of a time horizon.
If 90% of businesses fail outright,
sure,
96% fail to break $1 million and only 4% go over that. Yeah. What is it that those have in common? The ones that make it, do they share something in common? And if so, what?
Well, I think to cross $1 million, you need a consistent acquisition process. That's about it.
Customer acquisition.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, customer acquisition process. Like in the beginning, you have to do something, period. 0 to 1. You have to do something. And then you have to make your first dollar. And then your advertising is inconsistent because you're inconsistent. Once you become consistent, then your sales become inconsistent because you don't have a process. So then you have to dial in the sales process. So basically advertising and sales have to become a consistent process with predictive metrics. We know that if we do 100 primary actions, whether that's 100 posts, $100 in ad spend, 100 reach outs, that will generate this many leads, which generates this many calls, which generates this many sales. And it could be on e-commerce, or it could be in a service or environment like I'm describing with calls. But fundamentally, you just have to get to that equation. And once you get there, then it's just inputs and outputs. And then you're just pouring as much in and then figuring out what the constraints are from you putting more in. At least that's how I think about it.
Do you force yourself to predict the outcome of initiative before you do it?
Not as much as I used to be really honest with you. This is actually a huge change for me in terms of how we grow our portfolio now. I'm actually really curious what you think on this. But I heard Jensen Huang say it, and so I feel like a little bit better. But basically, they did away with all long-term planning. And I always felt like long-term planning, because when I got a year later, I was like, half these things that we were talking about a year ago, the variables of the environment, talent, many of the major movers have changed what the priorities are in the business. And so I focus almost exclusively now on what are we going to do in the next 12 weeks Now, we obviously have long-term objectives, but I don't want to plan out forecasts and basically obsess and get everything down to the decimal when I can't even estimate the big forces that are going to be at play. Now, if I say, I think if we build the brand this year, that is a good thing, and that's our number one priority, then great, then I can reverse that. But I'm reversing it only into the present for the next 12 weeks because things will change.